A chance encounter. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a fierce snowstorm enveloped the small town of Willow Creek. The air crackled with icy winds and the snowflakes danced wildly, swirling in the dim light of the flickering street lamps. Thick clouds masked the evening sky, casting an eerie twilight over the deserted streets. In the heart of this winter wonderland, Samuel Johnson found solace in the familiar creaks of his modest home. Samuel, a strong-built black man in his late 30s, had lived in Willow Creek all his life. He was a respected mechanic at the local auto shop, known for his meticulous attention to detail and unwavering work ethic. Though he had few close friends, Samuel was well regarded in the community. People knew they could rely on him, but he preferred the quiet comfort of solitude over the bustling social interactions that often accompany small-town life. That evening, as snow blanketed the town, Samuel wrapped himself in a warm sweater and sat by the window, sipping on a steaming mug of tea. He gazed out at the swirling snowflakes, each unique and beautiful in its own right. The world outside was transforming into a winter wonderland, but Samuel's heart felt heavy. He had long buried the ghosts of his past, memories he thought were long forgotten. Just as he was about to turn away from the window, a flash of red caught his eye. A car struggled to navigate the treacherous, snow-covered road just outside his home. Samuel squinted to see better. It was a compact sedan, and the driver, a woman, seemed to be in distress. The vehicle lurched and skidded before coming to a halt, his tires spinning helplessly in the snow. Without a second thought, Samuel grabbed his jacket and stepped out into the biting cold. The wind stung his face, but the urgency of the situation propelled him forward. As he approached the stranded vehicle, he saw the woman behind the wheel. Her face was a mix of frustration and fear, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Are you okay?" he called out, raising his voice to be heard over the howling wind. The woman, whose name was Emily, looked up and nodded, though her expression conveyed her worry. "I think I'm stuck. I can't get any traction," she shouted, her voice trembling slightly. Samuel assessed the situation. The snow had piled up around her tires, creating a small wall that hindered her ability to move. "Let me help you," he said, moving closer. Emily smiled, relief washing over her features. "Thank you. I didn't know what to do. I was just trying to get home before the storm got worse." Together, they worked to free the car from the snow. Samuel guided Emily on how to rock the car back and forth while he pushed. After several attempts, the vehicle finally lurched forward, breaking free from the icy grip of the snow. Emily gasped in surprise, and Samuel chuckled at her reaction. "You did it!" she exclaimed, her face lighting up with joy. "I can't believe it." Samuel felt a warmth in his chest. It was a small act of kindness, yet it brought him unexpected satisfaction. He had always been someone who preferred to stay in the background, but in that moment he felt like a hero. "Just be careful next time," he advised, wiping his brow as he stepped back from the car. "The roads are pretty treacherous in this weather." "Absolutely, I will," Emily replied, her voice brimming with gratitude. "I really appreciate it." "What's your name?" "Samuel," he replied, offering a brief smile. "Thank you, Samuel. I'm Emily. Can I offer you something? Coffee? Hot chocolate?" she suggested, her eyes sparkling with genuine kindness. Samuel hesitated. He wasn't used to accepting help or favors, but something about Emily's sincerity melted away his usual reluctance. "Sure. Why not?" he finally said, his voice steady despite the sudden rush of warmth he felt. As they walked towards her car, Samuel noticed Emily's demeanor shift from panic to ease. She was a woman in her early 30s with light brown hair that framed her face and an infectious smile that made it hard to feel anything but cheerful in her presence. "I can't believe how generous you were," she said as they entered the vehicle. "Most people wouldn't even stop to help a stranger." Samuel shrugged, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "It's just what you do," he replied, trying to downplay his actions. They drove a short distance to a quaint coffee shop that remained open despite the storm. Inside, the warmth enveloped them like a soft blanket, and the comforting aroma of coffee beans filled the air. Samuel and Emily settled into a cozy corner booth, their cheeks still flushed from the cold. As they sipped their drinks, they began to chat, their conversation flowing easily. Samuel learned that Emily was new to Willow Creek, having moved from a bustling city seeking a quieter life. She shared her dreams of starting a small bakery, a venture she had always dreamed of but never had the courage to pursue until now. "That sounds amazing," Samuel encouraged. "You should definitely go for it." "Thank you. It's a bit of a leap, but I think it's time," Emily replied, her eyes gleaming with determination. Samuel found himself captivated by her enthusiasm. He admired her spirit, something he had long abandoned in his own life. As they exchanged stories, laughter echoed in the small shop, drowning out the sound of the storm outside. But as the evening wore on, the familiar unease settled in Samuel's chest. His past was a shadow he could never entirely escape, and he feared that his fleeting moment of joy might be short-lived. Hours later, as the storm began to subside, Emily offered to drive him back home. "I'd like to repay you somehow," she insisted, her voice warm and inviting. As they drove through the snow-laden streets, Samuel's thoughts drifted back to his childhood. Memories of growing up in a neighborhood plagued by violence and distrust flooded his mind. Despite having left that life behind, the scars still lingered, haunting him in moments of vulnerability. Arriving in his modest home, Samuel turned to Emily, grateful for her companionship and the connection they had forged. "Thank you for coffee," he said, feeling a rare sense of lightness. "I really enjoyed our conversation," she replied, her smile brightening the dim interior of the car. "Let's do this again sometime." Samuel's heart swelled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He felt a spark of hope igniting within him, a feeling he had long thought extinguished. But as he stepped out of the car and watched Emily drive away, he couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter was only the beginning of something far more complicated. The next day, as Samuel went about his routine, the unexpected nature of his life began to unravel. His phone buzzed incessantly, a noise that had become all too familiar over the years. He glanced at the screen and his heart dropped. It was a message from someone he had hoped never to hear from again, an old acquaintance from his past. "Samuel, we need to talk. I'm back in town. Meet me." The simple words sent a chill down his spine. Memories of a life he had fought hard to escape rushed back, overwhelming him. It was the call of his past, a haunting reminder of the choices he had made and the consequences he had faced. As he read the message over and over, Samuel's mind raced with questions. Why now? What did they want? He had built a new life, one he was proud of, but how could he protect it from the shadows of his past? His phone buzzed again, and this time it was Emily, checking in to see how he was doing after their encounter. "Hey, just wanted to see how you're holding up in the snow." He hesitated for a moment, his heart torn between the exhilaration of his new connection with Emily and the impending threat of his past. With a deep breath, he replied, "I'm doing well, just trying to stay warm. How about you?" As the day unfolded, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change once more. The warmth of Emily's smile lingered in his mind, reminding him of the hope he had almost forgotten. But lurking just beyond the edges of his new reality was the specter of his past, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Little did he know, Emily's presence in his life would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself, forcing him to confront the shadows he had tried so hard to outrun. As Samuel prepared for the impending storm, he felt a sense of dread mixed with anticipation. What awaited him on the other side of this chance encounter would reshape not only his life, but also his understanding of redemption, courage, and the power of connection. Echoes of the past. The next morning dawned gray and cold, the remnants of the storm clinging to the world like a reluctant ghost. Samuel sat at his kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of coffee in front of him. The snow outside sparkled in the early light, creating an almost magical scene that contrasted starkly with the turmoil swirling in his mind. He couldn't shake the unease that had settled in overnight, a sense that the past he thought he had left behind was creeping back into his life. As he absently stirred his coffee, he replayed the events of the previous evening in his mind. The warmth of Emily's laughter, her infectious optimism, it had been a long time since he felt that kind of connection. Yet with every passing moment, Samuel's mind would drift back to the message he received, a reminder of the life he had tried so hard to forget. It was nearly a decade ago when Samuel's life had taken a dark turn. He had been a different person then, caught up in the allure of a life filled with excitement but shadowed by danger. A group he once considered friends had led him down a path of crime where loyalty was a currency traded for survival. Samuel had made choices that haunted him, choices that resulted in shattered relationships and a tarnished reputation. It had taken years of hard work and determination to rebuild his life, to earn the respect of his community and distance himself from that dangerous past. But now the simple message, the past, felt more tangible than ever, and Samuel couldn't ignore the gnawing fear that he would be dragged back into a world he had fought to escape. With a heavy heart, he decided to take a walk to clear his mind. Bundling up in his thick coat and scarf, he stepped out into the crisp air. The biting cold was a welcome distraction, and he hoped the peacefulness of the snow-covered streets would help soothe his racing thoughts. As he walked, the tranquility of Willow Creek enveloped him. Children bundled in colorful jackets laughed and played in the snow, their joyful shouts echoing through the air. Samuel smiled at the sight, remembering his own childhood, how carefree and innocent it felt before life's complexities set in. He glanced around the familiar landscape of the town, grounding him, reminding him of how far he had come. Yet just as he began to find solace in the moment, a familiar voice interrupted his reverie. "Samuel, is that you?" Turning around, Samuel was greeted by the sight of Marcus, a man he had once considered a close friend during his turbulent years. Marcus approached with an air of confidence, dressed in his sharp coat that contrasted with the heavy snowflakes falling around them. Despite the warm colors of his clothing, there was an unmistakable chill in the air, and Samuel felt his stomach tighten. "Long time no see, man. How have you been?" Marcus said, his grin wide, but his eyes betraying an underlying tension. "Just keeping to myself, Samuel replied, his voice guarded. He wasn't ready to revisit the past, not now when he was beginning to build something new and hopeful. "I heard you've been doing well. Mechanic, right? A real good one from what I hear," Marcus said, his tone casual but laced with an edge that sent alarm bells ringing in Samuel's mind. "Yeah, I've been busy," Samuel replied tersely. "What about you?" "Oh, the usual hustle," Marcus said, waving his hand dismissively. "Still involved in the game, but you know how it is, always looking for the next big opportunity." Samuel felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had worked so hard to distance himself from that life, and Marcus's casual mention of the game reminded him just how easily he could slip back into it if he wasn't careful. "Listen, Marcus, I really don't have time for this," Samuel said, taking a step back, his heart racing. "I got my life together now." "Come on, don't be like that," Marcus replied, his tone shifting slightly. "I was just thinking about old times. You and I, we made a good team." "I've moved on, Marcus," Samuel asserted, his voice firm. "I don't want anything to do with that life." Marcus' expression hardened for a moment, but then he laughed, the sound grating against Samuel's nerves. "Sure, but don't forget how quickly things can change. You can't just walk away from your past, Samuel. It has a way of catching up to you." "Is that a threat?" Samuel felt the heat rise in his cheeks, the blood pounding in his ears. "Relax, man," Marcus said, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "Just a friendly reminder. I'm just saying things are heating up in town. You might want to keep your head down." With that, Marcus turned and walked away, his figure slowly disappearing into the flurrying snow. Samuel watched him go, a whirlwind of emotions crashing through him. The encounter had been brief, yet the implications were profound. Returning home, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him like the snow. He locked the door behind him, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. He needed to reach out to Emily. Their conversation the previous evening had been a breath of fresh air, a reminder of what it felt like to connect with someone without the baggage of his past weighing him down. Taking a deep breath, he grabbed his phone and texted her. "Hey, it's Samuel. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Hope the snow didn't keep you from your plans today." He hit send and waited, anxiety gnawing at him. Would you want to hear from him again? Their meeting had been spontaneous, filled with warmth and laughter, but now he feared that his past might taint any future they could have. Emily replied almost immediately. "Hi, Samuel. The snow was beautiful, but I'm stuck at home. How about you? Any plans for today?" Samuel felt a wave of relief wash over him. He typed back, "Just taking it easy. Maybe we can meet up later?" "Sure, I'd love that. Let's get coffee again. What time works for you?" Samuel's heart lifted. "How about 2 p.m.? "Perfect. See you then." As he prepared for their meeting, he couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus's words loomed over him like a dark cloud. What did he mean about things heating up in town? Samuel knew he had to tread carefully, especially now that he had formed a connection with Emily. At 2 p.m., Samuel arrived at the coffee shop, the familiar aroma welcoming him. But warmth enveloped him as he stepped inside, a stark contrast to the cold world outside. He spotted Emily seated at their usual table, her hair falling gracefully over her shoulders as she focused intently on her phone. "Hey there," Samuel greeted, a smile breaking across his face. Emily looked up, her eyes sparkling. "Samuel, so good to see you." She stood and gave him a quick hug, the kind that felt both comforting and exciting. "Thanks for coming," he said, taking his seat across from her. "How have you been?" "I've been good. Just try and get my bakery plans in order," she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. Samuel felt the tension of the morning dissipate as they fell into easy conversation. They talked about everything from Emily's dreams of opening a bakery to Samuel's work at the auto shop. For the first time in a while, he felt the weight of his past lift, if only for a moment. As they chatted, Samuel found himself mesmerized by Emily's passion. She spoke with conviction about her dreams, and it reignited something within him that had long been dormant. He said, "You remind me that life is about taking risks. I've been so focused on my past that I've forgotten to think about my future." Emily smiled knowingly. "It's easy to get stuck in a rut, but you seem like a guy who knows how to get things done. Don't let fear hold you back." Just as they were getting lost in their conversation, a commotion erupted outside the coffee shop. Samuel's heart sank as he turned to see a group of men standing on the sidewalk, their voices raised and angry. Among them was Marcus, his presence a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond Samuel's newfound happiness. "I should check on that," Samuel said, standing up. Emily looked concerned. Are you okay? Yeah, just a moment, he reassured her. As he stepped outside, the cold air hit him like a slap in the face. The group had gathered around a parked car, their faces twisted in anger. Samuel recognized one of the men as a local dealer, someone he had known from his past life. The situation escalated quickly, shouts ringing out as the men squared off against each other. Back off, Marcus. You don't want to do this, Samuel said, stepping forward, his voice steady. But Marcus's anger was palpable. You think you can just walk away, Samuel? You think you're better than us now. The tension in the air was electric, and Samuel felt the heat rising in his chest. I'm not better than anyone, but I've moved on. This isn't who I am anymore. The situation reached a boiling point, and just as Samuel feared it would erupt into violence, Emily stepped out of the coffee shop, her eyes wide with concern. Samuel, please come back inside. Staying her there, the worry etched on her face made him realize what was truly at stake. He couldn't let Marcus and the others pull him back into that life, not when he had something so valuable to lose. Let's talk about this, Marcus, just you and me, Samuel said, trying to defuse the situation. Talk? You think you can just ignore the past? You're a coward, Samuel. Marcus spat, his anger evident. But in that moment, something shifted within Samuel. He had spent so long running from who he was, fearing that his past would define him. But now, standing there with Emily watching, he realized he didn't have to fight back with anger or fear. He could face the past without letting it control him. I'm not a coward, he replied calmly. I'm not afraid of you or what I used to be. I'm proud of who I am now, and I won't let you or anyone else take that from me. The group fell silent, the air thick with tension. Samuel could feel Emily's gaze on him, and it filled him with resolve. Marcus scoffed, his bravado faltering for just a moment. You'll regret this, Samuel. You can't escape your past forever. Maybe not, Samuel replied, his voice steady. But I can choose how it affects my future. With that, he turned and walked back towards the coffee shop, leaving Marcus and the others behind. As he entered, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. Emily rushed to his side, concern etched on her face. Are you okay? Yeah, he said, taking a deep breath. I am. I was scared for you, she admitted, her eyes searching his. I know, I'm sorry for putting you in that position, Samuel replied, feeling the weight of his actions. They sat back down, the previous lightness of their conversation replaced by a solemn understanding of the dangers that lurked just beyond their bubble. You want to talk about it? Emily asked gently. Samuel hesitated, weighing his options. He didn't want to drag her into his past, but he also didn't want to hide who he was. I guess I owe you the truth, he said finally. I have a past that I'm not proud of. I used to be involved in some dangerous things, but I've worked hard to turn my life around. Emily nodded, her expression sympathetic. I appreciate you being honest with me. It must be hard to confront those memories. It is, Samuel admitted, but meeting you has made me realize how important it is to let go of that fear. I don't want my past to dictate my future. With a newfound sense of clarity, he realized he had a choice. He could either allow the shadows of his past to dictate his present, or he could embrace the light Emily brought into his life. As they continued to talk, the connection between them deepened, a bond forged in vulnerability and truth. Samuel couldn't help but smile, feeling grateful for Emily's presence and support. The world outside may have been filled with uncertainty, but here, in this moment, he felt hopeful about the future. Little did he know the echoes of his past would soon resurface, forcing him to confront the very demons he thought he had left behind. But for now, as he sat across from Emily, he decided to embrace the present, to cherish the connection they were building. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on, knowing he had someone worth fighting for. Unraveling the past. A few weeks passed after the tense encounter with Marcus. Samuel found himself adjusting to a quieter rhythm once more, throwing himself into work at the garage, savoring his time with Emily, and attempting to bury the unsettling memories from his past. However, there was a growing sense of unease in the air, as if the calm was merely the prelude to a storm. Emily had become a regular fixture in Samuel's life, and it wasn't long before the townsfolk began to notice their growing bond. She visited him at the garage during lunch breaks, they shared dinners at the small diner by the lake, and their laughter had become a familiar sound in the neighborhood. It was a simple life, but it was the peace Samuel had longed for. Still, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus and the shadows of his former life were lurking just out of sight, waiting to pounce. The more he tried to focus on the present, the more he felt the weight of the past pulling him back. The thought nagged at him late at night when he was alone, replaying the confrontation at the coffee shop over and over in his mind. One evening, Samuel invited Emily over for dinner at his house. It was a modest home, but it was filled with warmth and memories he had built since leaving his old life behind. As they sat together, a soft glow of candlelight dancing between them, Emily noticed something different in Samuel's demeanor. "You seem distracted," Emily said gently, setting her glass down. "Is everything all right?" Samuel sighed, running a hand through his hair. He couldn't hide it anymore. "Emily, there's something I've been meaning to tell you." Her face softened as she leaned in, giving him her full attention. "You can tell me anything, Samuel. I'm here for you." Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself. "I've made mistakes in my past, big ones. Before I moved here, I was involved in some dangerous situations. I ran with a group of people who weren't the best influence. They were involved in activities that could land you in jail or worse." Emily's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. "Samuel, everyone has a past. It doesn't define who you are now." "I know, but there's more. One of those people, Marcus, he was the leader of the group. I thought I had left all that behind, but now that he's back in town, I fear he might drag me back into that life. I've worked so hard to rebuild myself, and I don't want to lose what we have because of my past." Emily reached across the table, her hand enveloping his. "You're not that person anymore, and you can't let Marcus control your life. You have every right to stand your ground, but if you're worried, we can figure this out together." Samuel felt a rush of warmth at her words. Her unwavering support gave him a sense of courage he hadn't felt in years. "I appreciate that, but I don't want to put you in danger. I care about you too much to involve you in my mess." "Samuel," she said softly, her eyes locked onto his, "you're not putting me in danger just by being honest. But if you keep this bottled up, it could become even more dangerous. You need to confront this, whatever it is, and I'll stand by you through it." Her words lingered in the air, resonating deeply within him. Samuel knew he couldn't keep running from his past forever. "You're right," he conceded. "I have to face him." As the evening wore on, they talked about everything, fears, dreams, and the future they both envisioned. Emily shared her aspirations of starting her own business, her passion for helping others, and her love for Willow Creek. Samuel listened, captivated by her enthusiasm. It was this passion that made him feel alive, that made him believe in second chances. However, as the night drew to a close, a shadow of Marcus loomed larger in Samuel's mind. No matter how much he tried to focus on Emily, the anxiety of facing his past kept creeping in. He knew he couldn't ignore it any longer. The next morning, after a restless night, Samuel decided to visit the local diner for coffee. He needed to clear his head and figure out how to handle the situation with Marcus. As he sat in a booth staring at the swirling steam rising from his mug, he felt a sense of dread wash over him. Just then, the bell of the door jingled, and Samuel looked up to see Emily walking in, her cheeks flushed from the cold outside. She spotted him and smiled, making her way over. "Mind if I join you?" "Not at all," he replied, grateful for her presence. As they settled into conversation, Samuel noticed the tension easing slightly. Emily was a ray of sunshine in his otherwise tumultuous thoughts, but as they chatted, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Suddenly, the door swung open again, and in walked Marcus, flanked by two men Samuel recognized from his past. The sight of them sent a chill down his spine, but he forced himself to remain calm. He couldn't let Marcus see his fear. "Look who we have here," Marcus called out, his voice dripping with mockery as he approached their table. The mechanic and his little girlfriend. Samuel's heart raced as Emily's expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Samuel, are you okay?" she whispered, leaning closer. "Stay calm," he murmured back, clenching his fists under the table. "What are you doing here, Marcus?" Samuel asked, trying to keep his tone steady. "Just came to see how you've been, old friend," Marcus said, leaning against the table with a smirk. "Looks like you've been keeping yourself busy. Got yourself a new toy, huh?" Samuel shot him a warning glare. "I don't want any trouble, Marcus. I'm done with that life." "Done?" Marcus laughed, the sound hollow. "You can't just walk away, Samuel. You think you can turn your back on everything and everyone. I'll give you one last chance to join us again. We could use a guy like you, or maybe you prefer to keep playing house with your little girlfriend here." Emily looked between them, her expression a mix of confusion and anger. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the tension. "Just someone from Samuel's past," Marcus replied, a wicked grin spreading across his face. "You should know what you're getting into, sweetheart. He's not the man you think he is." "Stop it," Samuel said firmly, his heart pounding as he felt the atmosphere shift. "You don't get to talk about my past like that." "Oh, but I do," Marcus retorted, leaning closer, his tone darkening. "You think you can just erase it? You're still that scared little kid who followed me around trying to prove yourself. And now, you think you're better than me." Samuel took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "I'm not that person anymore, Marcus. I've changed." "Changed?" Marcus sneered. "You're still just pretending. The truth is, the past never really leaves. It waits for the perfect moment to strike." With every word Marcus spoke, Samuel felt the resolve within him hardening. He couldn't allow this man to control his narrative any longer. He glanced at Emily, who was watching the exchange with wide eyes, and felt a fierce protectiveness surge through him. "Listen to me, Marcus," Samuel said, his voice steady and low. "I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of my past, and I won't let you threaten what I've built here. If you're looking for a fight, you've picked the wrong guy." For a brief moment, silence filled the diner. The tension was palpable as Samuel stared down Marcus, feeling the weight of their shared history hanging in the air. But just as it seemed like the confrontation would escalate, Emily placed her hand on Samuel's arm. "Let's just leave," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "You don't have to engage with him." Marcus scoffed, clearly unamused. "You think you can just walk away? You're both in this now. Don't think you can escape so easily." Samuel felt Emily's grip tighten on his arm, and he nodded slowly. "You're right, Emily. We're leaving." He stood ready to walk away, but Marcus stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "Walk away? Not so fast, Samuel," Marcus said, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't over. They'll regret turning your back on us." As Samuel and Emily maneuvered past him, Samuel felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through him. He could sense Marcus' anger radiating behind him, but he held his head high. They stepped out into the crisp air, the biting wind nipping at their faces, but Samuel felt a sense of liberation. Once they were safely away from the diner, Emily turned to him, her face a mix of concern and disbelief. "Samuel, are you okay?" "I will be," he replied, his voice steady. It's not over. I have to confront him before this escalates." Emily nodded, her expression resolute. "Then we'll confront it together. You don't have to face this alone." Samuel felt a swell of gratitude for her unwavering support. They walked back toward his home, the weight of the confrontation still hanging heavily in the air. He knew he had to put an end to this before it consumed him. But with Emily by his side, he felt a newfound strength brewing within him, a resolve that would see him through the storm that was coming. As they reached his front porch, Samuel paused, taking a deep breath. "Thank you for standing by me, Emily. I don't know what I would do without you." Emily smiled softly, her eyes filled with warmth. "You're stronger than you realize, Samuel, and no matter what happens, we'll face it together." With a sense of determination igniting within him, Samuel knew that the battle ahead wouldn't just be against Marcus, but also against the fears that had haunted him for so long. It was time to reclaim his life, his choices, and the future he had begun to build with Emily. The past might have come knocking, but he was ready to show it the door. Confronting the shadows. The following days were a blur of anxiety and determination for Samuel. Each morning, he woke up with a sense of foreboding that hung over him like a dark cloud. Marcus's words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that the past he thought he had left behind was clawing its way back into his life. But this time, he was ready to fight. With Emily by his side, Samuel felt emboldened. Their bond deepened as they navigated the tension that Marcus's presence had created. Every evening, they would sit on his porch, sipping hot cocoa and discussing everything from mundane topics to their hopes for the future. Their conversations felt like a balm for the fear that lurked just beyond the surface. But Samuel knew he couldn't hide forever. He needed to confront Marcus, to draw a line in the sand and reclaim his life. With Emily's encouragement, he decided to take action. One cold afternoon, he found himself standing outside the diner where he had first encountered Marcus since his return. The bell above the door jingled ominously as Samuel stepped inside. The familiar scent of fresh coffee and fried food wafted through the air, and he felt a mix of nostalgia and dread. He spotted Marcus in the back corner, laughing with his old friends from the past. Anger boiled within him, but he took a deep breath, reminding himself of Emily's words. As he approached their table, Marcus's laughter faded. His gaze turned predatory, a sly smile creeping onto his face. "Well, look who we have here." The prodigal son returns. "Marcus," Samuel said, his voice firm, "we need to talk." "Sure, why not?" Marcus replied, waving his hand dismissively. "Sit down, let's catch up. I've missed you, buddy." Samuel sat down, keeping his expression neutral. "This isn't a social call. I want you to leave me and my life alone." Marcus leaned back in his chair, feigning innocence. "Oh, come on, Samuel. You know you can't just walk away from your old life. It's part of who you are. I'm just here to remind you of that." "I'm not that person anymore," Samuel shot back, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "I've changed. I have a job, friends, and a life here. You're a reminder of everything I've fought to leave behind." Marcus's smile widened, revealing a hint of menace. "But you're only as strong as your weakest link, Samuel. And it seems like you got quite a few of those." At that moment, Samuel felt a rush of anger and clarity. He had spent too long allowing Marcus's presence to dictate his emotions. "I won't let you use my past against me. I'm here to stay, and I'm not afraid of you." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You think it's that simple? Just cut ties and pretend like nothing happened? The past is a shadow, Samuel, and it will always follow you. You think Emily can protect you. Samuel clenched his jaw, determination burning in his chest. She's not just a shield, she's my partner. And I won't let you come between us. Partner? Marcus laughed, the sound cold and harsh. What a quaint notion. Just remember, people like me don't forget. You're playing a dangerous game and I always win. With that, Samuel stood, his heart pounding as he turned to leave. The air felt thick, electric with the unspoken tension that hung between them. As he stepped outside, he took a deep breath of the crisp winter air, feeling a mix of relief and dread. He had confronted Marcus, but the fight was far from over. Later that evening, Samuel and Emily met at their favorite spot by the lake. The water shimmered under the moonlight, and Samuel felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He sat on the edge of the dock, his legs dangling over the side, lost in thought. Emily joined him, sitting close enough that their arms brushed against each other. "How did it go?" she asked softly, her voice laced with concern. "Not great," Samuel admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Marcus is relentless. He thinks he can just come back and control everything." "But you stood up for yourself," Emily said, her eyes shining with pride. "That's a big step. You're not the same person you used to be, and he can't take that away from you." Samuel nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. "I just wish I could fully shake him off. I thought confronting him would bring me peace, but it's only made me more anxious." "Maybe peace isn't something you can find externally," Emily mused, her gaze focused on the water. "Sometimes it comes from within, from recognizing that you have the power to define your own path." Her words resonated with him, and he found himself reflecting on the journey he had taken to arrive at this moment. "You're right. I've spent too much time running from my past. It's time I faced it head-on." They sat in silence for a while, the only sounds being the gentle lapping of the water and the rustling of leaves in the wind. Samuel felt a sense of clarity washing over him, and he realized that he had been focusing too much on the threat of Marcus instead of embracing the life he had built. In the days that followed, Samuel's resolve grew stronger. He started to take proactive steps to protect his peace. He reached out to the local authorities to inform them of Marcus' return, sharing his concerns about the potential for trouble. He also began attending a support group for individuals dealing with past trauma, hoping to learn strategies to cope with the shadows that lingered. Emily stood by him through every step of the process, attending meetings with him and encouraging him to share his story. Samuel found comfort in the shared experiences of others who had faced their demons and emerged stronger on the other side. Each meeting helped him reclaim pieces of himself that he thought he had lost forever. One evening, after a particularly empowering meeting, Samuel and Emily returned to his home. As they settled in on the couch, the warmth of the fireplace casting a cozy glow around them, Samuel felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you for being there for me, Emily. You've helped me more than you know." Emily smiled, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "You're the one who's doing all the work, Samuel. You're facing your past head-on, and that takes immense courage." Samuel felt a flush of pride at her words. "I couldn't have done it without you. You've become my anchor, reminding me of who I am today, not who I was back then." Emily's expression shifted to one of seriousness. "But we can't let our guard down. Marcus is still out there, and we need to stay vigilant. If he's going to try to intimidate us, we need to be ready." "I agree," Samuel said, determination flaring within him. "I'll confront him again if I have to, but this time he'll be different. I'm not going to let him manipulate me or threaten what we have." As the days turned into weeks, Samuel and Emily continued to fortify their lives. They attended community events, deepening their connections with their neighbors and establishing themselves as a couple rooted in their new life. The support they received from the town reassured Samuel that he wasn't alone in this fight. Yet despite their efforts to move forward, Marcus's presence loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. Whispers began to circulate around town about a confrontation between him and Samuel, and rumors of Marcus's plans to disrupt the peace started to spread. Samuel's anxiety resurfaced, but this time it was paired with a newfound resolve. He was not going to be the man who allowed his past to define him. He would stand firm, no matter the cost. One evening, while they were preparing dinner together, Samuel received a text that would change everything. It was from a friend from his past, someone who had stayed connected to the old crowd. The message was simple yet ominous. "Marcus is planning something. Be careful." Panic surged through Samuel as he turned to Emily, his heart racing. "We need to talk." She looked up from the stove, her brow furrowing with concern. "What's wrong?" "Marcus is up to something. I just got a message that he's planning something that could involve both of us." Emily's expression hardened. "Then we need to be proactive. We can't let him control our lives any longer." Samuel felt a surge of admiration for her strength. "You're right. I want to confront him again, but this time I'll do it with a plan." With that, they began to strategize. Samuel shared his intentions to gather support from their friends in the community, and Emily suggested they involve the local authorities. Together, they made a list of people they could trust to stand by them if things escalated. As the clock ticked closer to the confrontation with Marcus, Samuel felt a mix of anxiety and determination. He was ready to face whatever storm awaited him, knowing that he had the strength of his newfound life and the love of Emily to guide him. The shadows of his past might have come to haunt him, but he was prepared to shine a light on them and reclaim his future. The breaking point. The night before the planned confrontation with Marcus, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling of impending dread that settled in the pit of his stomach. He and Emily had spent the evening mapping out their strategy, discussing how to confront Marcus without letting him regain the upper hand. It was essential that they approach this with clear heads and unwavering determination. As Samuel lay in bed, the darkness wrapped around him like a heavy cloak. He stared at the ceiling, thoughts racing. The warmth of Emily's presence next to him brought comfort, but it couldn't quell the anxiety that threatened to consume him. Memories of the past flooded his mind. The fear, the regret, the feeling of being trapped. He had fought so hard to escape that life, and now it felt as if it were closing in on him once more. The clock struck midnight, and Samuel rolled over to find Emily still peacefully asleep. Her chest rose and fell gently, a serene contrast to the turmoil in his mind. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair away from her face, feeling a surge of affection for her. She had stood by him through the storm, offering unwavering support even when he felt most vulnerable. He couldn't allow Marcus to jeopardize what they had built together. Suddenly, a noise jolted him from his thoughts. A loud crash echoed from the living room, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Samuel's heart raced as he slipped out of bed, his instincts kicking in. "Emily, stay here," he whispered urgently. He crept down the hallway, the dim light from the living room flickering ominously. As he reached the doorway, he hesitated, his breath hitching in his throat. The silhouette of a figure loomed in the shadows, and Samuel's heart raced. He knew this had to be Marcus. "Samuel." Emily's voice broke through the haze of fear, and he turned to see her behind him, fear etched on her face. "Stay back," he ordered, stepping protectively in front of her. The tension in the air was palpable as the figure turned to face them. "Good evening, Samuel," Marcus said, a smirk plastered across his face. "I figured I'd drop by and remind you of your place." The sight of Marcus ignited a fire within Samuel. "You need to leave. You're not welcome here." Marcus chuckled darkly, his eyes glinting with malice. "Oh, I don't think you understand how this works. You think you can just waltz back into town and forget your past? I come to remind you that it's not that easy." "Get out," Samuel shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "You don't belong here anymore." "Belong? That's rich coming from you. You think you're safe in your little bubble? I know things, Samuel, things that could ruin you." "Enough." Samuel's voice boomed, the fear that had paralyzed him now morphing into fierce determination. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "You're not going to intimidate me anymore." Marcus raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by Samuel's defiance. "Ah, the brave mechanic. I have to admit, I like this version of you. But bravery can be a double-edged sword." Without warning, Marcus lunged forward, and Samuel instinctively pushed Emily behind him, ready to defend her. The two men grappled, exchanging blows in a chaotic flurry of fists and fury. Samuel felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins, each punch fueled by the fear and anger he had suppressed for so long. But just as Samuel thought he had the upper hand, Marcus struck him hard in the jaw, sending him sprawling to the ground. Pain radiated through his face, but he quickly scrambled to his feet, eyes blazing with determination. He couldn't let Marcus win, and he wouldn't. "Get out of my life," Samuel roared, lunging at Marcus again. This time he landed a solid punch, catching Marcus off guard. But the confrontation was far from over. Emily, shaken but resolute, picked up her phone and dialed 911. "Help is on the way, Samuel," she shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Marcus, realizing the odds were shifting against him, took a step back, eyes darting between Samuel and Emily. "This isn't over," he sneered, his voice dripping with menace. "You think calling the cops will save you? You've unleashed a storm, Samuel, and it's only just beginning." With that, he turned on his heel and bolted out the door, leaving Samuel and Emily breathless in the aftermath of the confrontation. The air was thick with tension, but Samuel felt a flicker of victory ignite within him. He had stood his ground, and that meant something. As the sound of sirens approached in the distance, Samuel turned to Emily, who was still clutching her phone, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Yeah, I'm fine," Samuel replied, though he could feel the adrenaline still coursing through his body. "But we need to talk about what just happened." Moments later, the police arrived, flashing lights illuminating the darkness outside. Officers rushed inside, assessing the situation. Samuel explained what had transpired, his voice steady despite the chaos of emotions swirling within him. Emily stood beside him, her hand intertwined with his, grounding him as he shared his story. The officers took notes and assured them that they would do everything possible to keep them safe. As they finished their report, one of the officers leaned in, his expression serious. "We've had reports about Marcus recently. He's been causing trouble in town, and we're keeping an eye on him. If you feel threatened, don't hesitate to reach out to us." "Thank you," Samuel said, gratitude washing over him. He knew that having the police aware of Marcus's presence would provide some peace of mind. But the fight was far from over. Once the officers left, Samuel and Emily stood in the living room, the weight of the confrontation settling in. "I can't believe this is happening," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if he comes back?" "We'll be ready," Samuel assured her, determination burning in his chest. "This time, we won't let him control our lives. I refuse to let fear dictate our future." As the reality of the situation began to sink in, Samuel realized that this was more than just a confrontation with Marcus. It was a turning point, a moment that would define who he was moving forward. He had faced his past, and while it hadn't been easy, it had strengthened his resolve. "Let's do this together," Emily said, her voice firm. "We'll face whatever comes next, side by side. You're not alone in this, Samuel." With her words ringing in his ears, Samuel felt a sense of calm wash over him. Together, they would navigate the storm that lay ahead, and he was ready to fight for their future. He had faced Marcus once, and he would do it again if necessary. The shadows of his past may have returned, but with Emily by his side, he felt invincible. As the days passed, Samuel took the initiative to rally support from their community. He reached out to neighbors and friends, sharing his story and warning them about Marcus's potential threat. To his surprise, he found that many had been affected by Marcus's actions in one way or another, and the town rallied behind him. Together, they formed a neighborhood watch, a collective effort to keep each other safe and informed. Samuel felt empowered by the camaraderie, a sense of belonging that fortified him against the darkness that Marcus represented. Emily became an integral part of this effort, her organizational skills shining as she helped coordinate meetings and distribute information. But despite their collective strength, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus would strike again. He could feel it in his bones, a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Late one evening, as Samuel and Emily prepared for bed, he received another unexpected message. It was from an old friend who had heard about the trouble with Marcus. "Meet me at the old garage tomorrow. I have information that could help you," the message read. Samuel's heart raced with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. What could this friend possibly know that would change the game? "Who's it from?" Emily asked, her eyes narrowing with concern. "A friend from my past," Samuel replied, his mind racing. "He says he has information about Marcus. I think I need to meet him." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Emily asked, worry etched on her face. "What if it's a trap?" Samuel took her hands in his, grounding himself in her presence. "I need to do this. I want to know what I'm up against. The more I understand Marcus and his intentions, the better prepared we'll be." Emily's expression softened and she nodded slowly. "I trust you. Promise me you'll be careful." "Always," he promised, feeling a surge of determination. The next day, he would meet his friend and uncover whatever information could help them face Marcus once and for all. As Samuel drifted off to sleep that night, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had faced Marcus and emerged stronger, and now he was ready to dive deeper into the shadows of his past. No matter what lay ahead, he would confront it head-on, armed with the love and support of Emily and their community. The reckoning. The morning sun peeked through the window, casting a warm glow across the room. Samuel stirred awake, the events of the previous night flooding back into his mind. Today was the day he would meet his old friend, and he couldn't shake the mixture of anticipation and anxiety that gripped him. He glanced over at Emily, who was still peacefully asleep, her chest rising and falling softly. A sense of calm washed over him at the sight of her. He couldn't afford to let his fears cloud his judgment. He had to stay focused. After a quick breakfast, Samuel slipped on a warm jacket and boots, preparing himself for the cold outside. He could feel the chill in the air even through the thick fabric, a reminder of the harsh winter that had settled over Willow Creek. The old garage where he was to meet his friend was on the outskirts of town, a place filled with memories of his past, both good and bad. As he stepped out into the brisk morning, he took a deep breath, feeling the sharp air fill his lungs. He had made a commitment to himself to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and today would be no different. Samuel walked toward the garage, each step echoing his determination to confront the shadows that had haunted him for so long. Upon arriving, he noticed that the old garage looked much the same as he remembered. Rusting metal doors, a weathered sign that had seen better days, and the faint scent of oil and gasoline lingering in the air. But the nostalgia was quickly replaced by the urgency of the moment. He opened the door and stepped inside, the creaking hinges announcing his arrival. "Samuel, over here." A voice called from the far corner. It was Dave, an old friend from his high school days. Dave had always been a few steps ahead of the rest of them, a thrill-seeker who often found himself in trouble. He had left town years ago, chasing opportunities in bigger cities, but Samuel hadn't seen him in years. "Dave," Samuel greeted, a mix of excitement and apprehension washing over him. The two men embraced, and for a moment, it felt as if no time had passed. But Samuel quickly remembered the purpose of their meeting. "What do you have for me?" Samuel asked, pulling away to look into Dave's eyes. The jovial facade faded, replaced by a serious expression. "Sit down," Dave said, gesturing to a rickety wooden stool. Samuel obliged, his heart racing as Dave leaned in closer. "I heard about Marcus," Dave said, lowering his voice as if the walls had ears. "He's been moving in some dangerous circles. You need to know what you're dealing with." Samuel's brow furrowed, anxiety gnawing at him. "What do you mean?" "Marcus is involved with a gang that's been terrorizing the area," Dave explained. "They've been extorting businesses, using intimidation to get what they want. He's not just a bully anymore, he's dangerous. He has connections that go deeper than you might think." Samuel felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. "So this isn't just about him coming after me. It's bigger than that." "Exactly. He's trying to assert his dominance, and you become a target because of your past." Dave leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted to warn you because I don't think he's done with you yet. He's going to come after you and anyone you care about." Samuel's fists clenched at the thought of Marcus targeting Emily. "What do we do?" he asked, a mixture of fear and determination igniting within him. "I have some contacts who can help," Dave offered. "We can set up a plan to keep you safe. But you need to be prepared. This isn't going to be easy." "Count me in," Samuel said resolutely. "Whatever it takes." As they formulated a plan, Samuel felt a newfound strength within him. He had faced his past, and now he was prepared to confront it head-on. With the support of Emily and his community, he was ready to take his stand against the darkness that threatened to engulf him. After the meeting, Samuel returned home, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what lay ahead. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping tea and working on her laptop. Her face lit up when she saw him, but he could see the concern etched in her features. "Did you find out anything?" she asked, her voice steady yet filled with worry. "Yeah," Samuel replied, taking his seat beside her. He recounted his conversation with Dave, watching as her expression shifted from relief to anxiety. "We need to act fast," Emily said, her voice firm. "We can't let him intimidate us." "I agree," Samuel said, a sense of unity bolstering his resolve. "But we have to be smart about this. We'll inform the neighbors and let them know what's happening. The more people we have looking out for each other, the safer we'll be." That evening, they gathered their neighbors in Samuel's living room, sharing the details of Marcus's resurgence. Samuel could see the worry in their eyes, but there was also a fierce determination to protect their community. They decided to create a neighborhood watch, and as they made plans, a sense of camaraderie filled the room. As days turned into weeks, Samuel and Emily's life became a whirlwind of activity. They worked together to strengthen their community bonds, organizing meetings and safety protocols. Samuel felt empowered, knowing that he wasn't facing this battle alone. But as the watch grew, so did Marcus's intimidation tactics. He began to spread rumors about Samuel, trying to isolate him from the community. Samuel could feel the pressure mounting, and with every passing day, Marcus's presence loomed larger. One chilly evening, Samuel and Emily were walking home after another neighborhood meeting when they spotted a group of men standing by the old gas station. Samuel recognized Marcus among them, and the sight sent a chill down his spine. "Stay close to me," Samuel murmured, instinctively positioning himself between Emily and the men. As they walked past, Marcus called out, "Hey, Samuel, still playing the hero, I see." His tone dripped with mockery, and Samuel's fists clenched at his sides. "Leave us alone, Marcus," Samuel replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why don't you tell your little girlfriend what you used to do?" Marcus taunted, a smug grin on his face. Emily's eyes widened, and Samuel felt a surge of protectiveness. "Don't you dare speak to her like that," he shot back, his voice low and threatening. "Oh, I think it's time she knew the real you," Marcus sneered. "You think you can outrun your past, but it'll always catch up to you." Ignoring Marcus's words, Samuel took Emily's hand and led her away, heart racing with anger and fear. Once they were a safe distance away, he turned to her, searching her face for signs of distress. "Samuel, what did you mean?" Emily asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It doesn't matter," he replied, trying to sound reassuring. "I'm not that person anymore." "But he knows something about you? Something you haven't told me," she pressed, concern etched across her face. "I need to know the truth." Samuel hesitated, grappling with the weight of his past. He had fought so hard to leave it behind, but he knew he couldn't hide it from her any longer. Before I moved back to Willow Creek, I was involved in some illegal activities, he confessed, the words feeling heavy on his tongue. I was trying to survive, trying to make a living, but it led me down a dark path. Emily's eyes softened and she squeezed his hand. You're not that person anymore, Samuel. You've changed. I know, he said, his voice barely a whisper. But Marcus is using my past against me. He's trying to intimidate me into submission, and I can't let him do that, not to you or anyone else in this town. That night, as Samuel lay awake, he realized that his past was not just a shadow lurking behind him. It was a part of who he had become. It had shaped his journey, influenced his choices, and led him to Emily. He wouldn't let Marcus control his life any longer. The next day, Samuel and Emily decided to take matters into their own hands. They contacted the police and shared everything they had learned about Marcus's involvement with the gang. To their surprise, the officers took their concerns seriously, pledging to increase patrols in their neighborhood and investigate Marcus' activities further. As they stood together, watching the police car drive away, Emily turned to Samuel with determination in her eyes. We need to show Marcus that we won't back down. Let's organize a community rally. We'll stand together and show him that he can't intimidate us. Samuel felt a surge of pride at her bravery. That's a great idea. We need to show the town that we're united against him. Over the following days, the community rallied together and excitement buzzed in the air as they planned the rally. Samuel felt a sense of hope that he hadn't experienced in a long time. When the day of the rally arrived, Samuel and Emily arrived early to help set up. The streets were lined with colorful banners and signs bearing messages of unity and strength. Neighbors gathered, their faces illuminated with determination, ready to stand together against Marcus' intimidation. As Samuel took the stage to address the crowd, he felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. Thank you all for being here today, he began, his voice steady. We're here to show Marcus that we will not be silenced or intimidated. We are a community, and together we are stronger. Cheers erupted from the crowd, filling the air with energy and solidarity. Samuel's heart swelled with pride as he saw familiar faces in the audience, people who had once been afraid now standing together, united in purpose. After the speeches concluded, the atmosphere shifted, and as Samuel looked out at the crowd, he could see their determination reflected in their eyes. They had come together, not just to confront Marcus, but to reclaim their community from fear. In the following weeks, the rally sparked a change in the neighborhood. More residents became active in the watch program, and together, they began to drive Marcus and his gang out of their lives. Samuel felt a sense of hope for the future, but he knew they weren't done yet. Marcus still lingered in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. One night, as Samuel and Emily were preparing for bed, they heard a loud crash outside. Samuel's heart raced as he jumped up and peered through the window. He saw a group of men vandalizing a nearby house, spray-painting crude messages on the walls. Stay here, he told Emily firmly. I'll call the police. As he dialed, he grabbed his jacket and rushed outside to confront the vandals. When he stepped out, he saw Marcus among them, a triumphant smirk on his face. You really think you can stop us, Samuel? Marcus taunted, stepping closer. You're just a coward hiding behind your little community. No, Marcus. I'm standing up for what's right, Samuel replied, his voice unwavering. Before Marcus could respond, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, and Samuel felt a surge of adrenaline. He had to buy time for the police to arrive. You're all going to regret this, he warned. Marcus's smirk faded as he realized the police would soon be there. This isn't over, Samuel, he spat before turning to his gang. Let's go. With that, the group scattered, leaving behind their spray cans and a mess of chaos. Samuel watched as the police pulled up, his heart racing. He quickly briefed the officers on what had happened, and they assured him they would investigate. As the dust settled, Samuel turned back toward his house, where Emily was waiting. Are you okay? She asked, her face pale with concern. I'm fine, he replied, wrapping his arms around her. But this isn't over. We need to keep fighting. In the weeks that followed, the community continued to stand strong. They organized cleanup efforts to remove the vandalism and restore their neighborhood's spirit. Samuel felt a sense of pride and accomplishment as he worked alongside his neighbors, each act of solidarity reinforcing their resolve to stand against intimidation. But Marcus was relentless. He escalated his threats, leaving messages on doorsteps and taunting Samuel at every opportunity. Samuel refused to let fear take hold. He leaned on Emily for support, and together, they maintained their commitment to protecting their community. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Samuel turned to Emily, the weight of the situation heavy on his shoulders. I can't help but feel like we're just waiting for the next attack, he admitted. We're not alone, Samuel, Emily reassured him. We have each other and our neighbors. Together, we can face anything. Those words echoed in Samuel's mind as he tried to remain focused on the bigger picture. The community was growing stronger, and the support they had built together was something he had never experienced before. Just when Samuel thought the situation had reached a breaking point, a surprising twist occurred. A local news station caught wind of their community rally and decided to cover the story. Reporters arrived in town to highlight the resilience of Willow Creek and the courage of its residents in standing against fear and intimidation. As cameras rolled and interviews were conducted, Samuel found himself at the center of the story. He shared his journey, his struggles with his past, and how this community had united to confront their fears. Emily stood by his side, her pride shining through as she supported his message. The coverage brought national attention to their small town, and for the first time, Marcus felt the pressure of public scrutiny. With the community's strength amplified by the media, it became harder for him to operate in the shadows. As Marcus's grip on the community weakened, Samuel felt the tides turning. The police launched a full investigation into Marcus and his gang, and it became clear that the fear that had held the town captive was beginning to dissolve. In a climactic turn of events, the police executed a raid on one of Marcus's known locations, arresting him and several of his associates. The news broke like wildfire, and the sense of relief that washed over Willow Creek was palpable. As the community gathered to celebrate their victory, Samuel felt a sense of fulfillment. They had stood together against adversity, and through their unity, they had emerged stronger than ever. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the gathering, Samuel took Emily's hand and smiled. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We did," Emily replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Together." And as they stood among their neighbors, united in their triumph, Samuel realized that while his past had shaped him, it was the strength of the community and the love he had found with Emily that would define his future. The shadows of fear had been chased away, replaced by the light of hope, resilience, and a bond that could withstand anything. The story of Samuel and Emily became a beacon of inspiration, reminding everyone that no matter how dark the past may seem, love, unity, and courage could always light the way forward. As they looked toward the future, Samuel knew that he was not just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for a better tomorrow, for his community, and for the love that had transformed his life. In that moment, as the stars began to twinkle above Willow Creek, Samuel understood that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. They had overcome adversity, and together they would continue to rise, stronger and more resilient than ever before.